In Peru, President Dina Boluarte appointed new ministers after several of her cabinet officials resigned amid corruption investigations against her. The United Nations announced a mission to Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza following the withdrawal of the Israeli occupation forces from the facilities. And in Russia, authorities seized over 27 explosive devices while being transported from Ukraine to Russia via European Union member states. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Peru, President Dina Boluarte appointed new ministers after several of her cabinet officials resigned amid investigations of alleged corruption against her. The president swore in 6 new ministers on Monday night. Among these are Walter Ortiz Acosta as Minister of the Interior, Ángela Hernández Cajo as the new Minister of Women and Vulnerable Populations, and Morgan Quero Gaime as the new head of the Education portfolio. The resignations take place 2 days before the Prime Minister, Gustavo Adriansen, is due to appear before Congress, which is why the President accelerated the reconfirmation of the executive. The Peruvian President is facing a preliminary investigation by the Public Prosecutor's Office for alleged illicit enrichment and omission to declare the detriment of the state. In Chile, leaders and militants held a conversation with Ranger Peña of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela to learn about the details of the electoral process on July 28th. The activity takes place in the midst of a media campaign against the electoral process in Venezuela, in which Chilean media seek to misinform local audiences in order to generate opinion matrices. By means of these narratives, for example, they arbitrarily omit data such as the number of candidates registered for the elections. The attendants to the conversation were able to compare the information they receive in Chile and to analyze part of the communicational assemblies.
Here in Chile there is no information about the process, only the sounding board of the CNN or the Western channels where it is said that there is a fraud, that a candidate is left out, and all that is being repeated by the media of the empire. The truth is that it is a caricature, or when one listens, reads El Mercurio, La Tercera, watches television channels and even listens to some supposedly progressive or democratic politicians, not to mention those on the right. First, there is an enormous level of misinformation, second, a complete level of lack of knowledge and ignorance, and third, a level of manipulation and intoxication that is done with the worst of intentions.
The large outbreak of syncytial virus and an imminent increase in flu infections led Chilean health authorities to reinstate the mandatory use of masks for a specific group of the population. The sustained increase in respiratory viruses forced the authorities of that country to decree this measure, which will be extended until September of this year. The government started the winter campaign with an immunization campaign that includes vaccines against influenza, COVID-19, and for the first time against the syncytial virus that affects newborns. The vaccination process is free and not compulsory, but a large number of vaccinations are expected after the high number of deaths due to the pandemic. Venezuela's Foreign Minister Iván Gil, in a post through his X account, urged the U.S. State Department's Undersecretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs, Brian Nichols, to abandon his interventionist pressures and learn from history. Gil states in that post, "In Spain, Mr. Nichols should learn a little history." The Foreign Affairs Minister remembered that there is well known that Venezuela stopped being a colony more than 200 years ago when under the command of Liberator Simón Bolívar. Gil also called the United States to abandon its interventionist and slave-owning pretensions. The message of the Venezuelan diplomat refers to a post that Nichols did after holding a meeting with the Foreign Minister of Spain, Susana Sumuelso. Brian Nichols wrote the following: "I enjoyed meeting my counterpart Susana Sumuelso. we discussed the urgent need to increase assistance to Haitian people, our support for compliance with the Barbados Agreement on the elections in Venezuela, and the defense of human rights in Cuba and Nicaragua. Prohibition. In Ecuador, the increase in homicides during the state of emergency in the country cast doubt on the so-called Phoenix Plan promoted by Daniel Noboa's government. Various organizations point out that the security plan was promoted under the assumption of fighting insecurity, but during the Holy Week holiday, where there were 137 murders and multiple kidnappings in spite of the militarization and curfew. In this context, the specialists affirm that there are no concrete results nor real figures of the Phoenix Plan and consider that it is only part of the narrative of Noboa. They also warn that states of exception, such as the one decreed by the Ecuadorian president, are not the solution to violence, but that other measures are necessary to solve the root of the problem. Let's look at some details of the so-called Phoenix Plan. President Daniel Noboa has promised to eradicate insecurity in Ecuador. In the style of his counterpart in El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, he has deployed the military on the streets and arrested almost 2,000 people. He announced the construction of 2 mega prisons and changed the country's military leadership after state officials were shown to have collaborated with criminal gangs. The president is keeping many of the details of this plan under wraps, which is generating fears among human rights defenders who consider that it does not guarantee the constitutional rights of the population. In the United States, the Republican and Democratic primaries continue on Tuesday in 6 states of the country to choose a candidate for the 2024 presidential elections. During the day, voters of both political organizations will be able to offer their opinion about the presidential candidacies of the next November 5th. The voting polls opened at 6 o'clock in the morning and will close at 9 o'clock at night, local time. In the meantime, in order for a candidate to be nominated by his party, he needs to gather a certain number of delegates in his favor, where the Republicans have around 2,429 delegates, while the Democrats have 4,672 delegates to achieve the nomination. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. All the stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In Palestine, a new Israeli airstrike killed 7 workers of the Charity World Central Kitchen on Monday after the delivery of food and supplies to North Gaza. The Ministry of Health in Gaza reported that at the time of the attack, the martyrs were traveling in a vehicle on the sea road west of the city of Deir al-Balah. During the removal of the bodies, the authorities confirmed the nationality of 3 of the 7 dead, who were of Polish, British, and Australian origin. In response to the attack, the Hamas movement reaffirmed in a communiqué that Israel still insists on its policy of systematic assassinations against civilians, humanitarian aid teams, and international charities in order to promote terror among humanitarian workers so that they cannot carry out their missions. The United Nations announced a dispatch of a mission to Al-Shifa Hospital in the city of Gaza following the withdrawal of the Israeli occupation forces from the facility. The United Nations spokesman Stefan Dujarric indicated that the organization is awaiting the necessary security warranties to enter the building that has remained for 2 weeks under siege by the Tel Aviv troops. Dujarric added that the mission's objective is to arrive as soon as possible at the Al-Shifa facility to assess both the state of health of the people and the conditions of the hospital. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 21 patients lost their lives during the siege of the institution, while local media claimed to find dozens of corpses piled up inside the building. In Palestine, health professionals set up makeshift tents to house displaced Palestinians as a result of the ongoing shelling by the Israeli regime since October 2023.
The initiative arises from the urgency of addressing the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip due to the lack of food and medicine, and amid the continuous obstruction of the movement of medical and civil defense teams, preventing them from reaching the victims. Dr. Najdat Sarkar, a dental specialist, was one of the doctors who decided to set up a health care center in his tent to assist victims of Israel's violent actions that have taken place over the past 6 months, including United Nations agencies members. Sarkar's decision came after his private clinic in Nuseirat camp was destroyed by Israeli shelling.
Antes del 7 de octubre, yo tenía una clínica odontológica en el
Before October 7th, I had a dental clinic in Al-Nuseirat camp. This clinic had 3 patient chairs. 3 dentists and 7 employees worked with me. That is to say, we had a normal situation, thank God, and it was fine until the events of October 7th. After this war began, we were forced to close the clinic. During these 6 months of war, we were left without work. Unfortunately, I did not have the possibility to open and operate the clinic because of the land invasion of the central area. The place where the clinic is located was completely evicted and considered red zone. Its inhabitants were displaced to Rafah.
Israel's attacks have caused serious damage in most of the Palestinian territory. The population faces various difficulties, as they are also affected by the lack of water and other vital services, such as electricity, a situation that also complicates health care service. Despite the situation, Dr. Najdat Sarkar was committed to the initiative thanks to the good reception of the population.
Después de pasar 6 meses, intenté reactivar la
After 6 months, I tried to reactivate the clinic, but, unfortunately, the area was a military objective and my clinic was under the scope of the attack. Even so, I tried to reopen the clinic, but it had not water nor electricity, while many patients were looking for me and asking me to treat them and relieve their ailments. Then, I decided to come here and enable this tent to work. Frankly, the idea of assigning patients is because of the large number of people who live here, and, since many dentists have immigrated and many dental clinics were destroyed, I came the idea of installing an odontological tent. As you can see, I fixed it and installed the patient chair. Even though we continue to face many difficulties due to lack of water and electrical energy, nor do we have all the necessary materials and inputs, in addition to the high costs that we find impossible to cover. People are very happy with our initiative. We have already treated 3 patients today and we continue working.
During the last 6 months, most of the healthcare centers and infrastructure in the Gaza Strip have been destroyed as a result of the bombardment of the Israeli offensive that has been going on since October 7, 2023.
In Israel, demonstrators blocked Highway 4 to protest against compulsory military service. Hundreds of ultra-Orthodox Jews have waved banners saying to jail, not to the army, and we will die rather than be drafted. Police arrested 6 demonstrators and forcibly cleared the road as the Jews refused to leave. The protest took place on the same day that a High Court order went into effect that stops financial support to Jewish seminaries whose students have not applied for army conscription.
The Israeli government wants to recruit US for the Israeli army. That is why it is considered irreligious for US. That's why we prefer to die rather than go to the Israeli army. We are demonstrating against the government, against the High Court. We will not go to the army. We prefer to die and not go to the army.
The Israeli parliament passed a bill giving top minister the authority to ban the Al Jazeera news channel. The bill, approved by 70 votes to 10, grants the authority to prohibit the transmission of content from foreign channels that are considered hostile, in addition to the closure of their offices in Israel. In this sense, after the approval of the bill, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stressed that he will take measures to prevent the Qatari media Al Jazeera from broadcasting from Israel, since he assures that it was involved in the Al-Aqsa flood operation of last October 7th. Syrian Foreign Minister Faisal Mekdad condemned on Monday the Israeli attack against the Iranian diplomatic headquarters in Damascus.
We strongly condemn this criminal act carried out by the Zionist enemy, which caused the death of some innocent citizens who were passing by this street. Therefore, again, we emphasize our stand with our brothers in the embassy and the Islamic Republic of Iran and guarantee that Syria and the Islamic Republic will not forget their enemies.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry condemned on Tuesday the Israeli airstrike that destroyed the consular annex of the Iranian embassy in Damascus.
China condemns the attack on the Iranian embassy in Syria. The security of diplomatic institutions cannot be violated, and the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Syria must be respected. The current situation in the Middle East is turbulent, and we oppose any action that leads to an escalation of tensions.
In Iran, hundreds of people demonstrated in Palestine Square in Tehran to protest against the Israeli attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. Citizens protested against the Israeli airstrike on April 1st. The demonstrators waved the Palestinian flag, chanted several chants, and raised their rejection of the attacks carried out by the Tel Aviv regime against the Palestinian people. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Approximately 27 explosive devices were seized while being transported from Ukraine to Russia via member states of the European Union. According to an official statement issued by the Russian Federal Security Service, officials of the Federal Customs Service dismantled a cross-border smuggling channel for explosives during the search of a vehicle at the Ublinka border crossing point on the Latvian-Russian border. 70 kilograms of high-powered plastic industrial explosive, 91 detonators, and components of a portable anti-tank rocket launcher round were taken from the vehicle. Russian President Vladimir Putin assured that Moscow will find all those responsible and beneficiaries of the Crocus City Hall crime. The head of state stressed that Moscow will not be satisfied with the direct perpetrators of the brutal crime, but will also look for all those who indirectly took part in the incident. The Russian president further detailed that the performance of all supervisory and control services responsible for the Crocus City is being thoroughly evaluated. Meanwhile, the Russian Investigative Committee confirmed the arrest of a suspect involved in financing the attack, as well as the collection of evidence proving a Ukrainian connection to the perpetrators. The 19th International Meeting of Academies for the Teaching of Ballet concluded in Cuba with the performance of the winners of the awards in the main and grand prizes categories. Actor and director Jorge Perú received the National Film Award as part of the 65th anniversary celebrations of the Institute for the Cuban Film Industry, ICAIC. Our correspondent Jordanis Rodriguez from Havana tells us more.
Cuba's cultural life in Havana was very busy during the last days. The 19th International Meeting of Academies for the Teaching of Ballet concluded at the National Theatre of Cuba with the performance of the winners of the awards in the main and grand prizes categories.
What I'm going to do when I grow up is to be the prima ballerina of Cuba, like Alicia Alonso, Beyonce Valdez, Gretel Morhan, and for me winning this award is the most important thing in my life. IT makes me happy because it's my first time.
The work of Maestro Fernando Alonso, to whom the meeting was dedicated on the 110th anniversary of the birth of this Master of Masters, is perpetuated in time.
It represents all my effort that I have achieved. And in spite of everything, I have achieved it and I have won a position here in Cuba and it is a very big achievement for me.
With the participation of more than 70 ballet academies from 14 countries, the event became an exceptional platform for the exchange of knowledge and experiences in the area of classical and contemporary dance. The main awards of the show were the competition's Revelation Prize, the Grand Prix, and the special mention of the jury. Another cultural moment of great significance in the framework of the celebrations for the 65th anniversary of ICAIC was when the writer, poet, narrator, and ethnologist, Miguel Barnett, announced as president of the jury, the National Film Award.
After analyzing the proposals and recognizing the value of all the candidates, the national and international work of the Cuban actor Jorge Peruguria was recognized. He is a versatile artist and embodies the deepest values of the national identity.
The laureate had emotional words for his professors, colleagues, family, and Cuban cinema.
This commits me even more than I have always been with the Cuban cinema. May there come an era of reconciliation. May we respect the differences among filmmakers, and may we ask to work together for the Cuban cinema. Long live Cuban cinema.
The ceremony also included the awarding of the Alejo Carpentier Medal to outstanding workers in the sector and filmmakers for their relevant merits and contributions to Cuban culture. On this 65th anniversary of the Cuban Institute of Cinematographic Art and Industry, the 65th anniversary commemorative seal of ICAIC was also awarded to those who, from different areas, have devoted part of their lives to the seventh art.
Jordanis Rodríguez Laurencio, TeleSUR, La Habana, Cuba.
The famous Spanish guitar player Paco de Lucia will be honored in Cádiz by the Latin Grammy Awards. It was announced Tuesday. The gala will take place at the Gran Teatro Falla in Cádiz on the 10th anniversary of the physical disappearance of one of the greatest Spanish musicians in history. The concert features a promotional announcement from the Latin Recording Academy to pay tribute to one of the most influential guitarists in the history of flamenco and music in general. Paco de Lucia was born in Algeciras province of Cádiz in 1947 and was for many the greatest flamenco instrumentalist in history. He passed away on February 25, 2014 in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Paco de Lucia is placed among the greatest exponents of the flamenco guitar in the world. And we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. With Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.